Ahoy there, YouTube. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to install an inclinometer in a Toyota Tercel 4-wheel drive wagon. Pretty straightforward. Let's get into what all we got to do. So inclinometers in the United States were factory set up on the 83 and 84 only SR5s. If you have an 83 or an 84 DLX model, they did use the same wiring harness. So all you gotta do is drill a hole in the dashboard, and you'll find a female version of this or a male version of this connector, and you just click it in, and then everything works. But if you have an 85 to 88 model, they do not have the factory wiring. So this tutorial will kind of help get you through all that and get it wired up to where it'll work just like it came from the factory. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of show you guys how I figured out whereabouts to mount this. So this is an 83/84 dash that came factory with an inclinometer. But what I did is taking an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, you stick it up right where this gauge cluster ends. About 2 1/8 inches over is where you're going to want to start drilling that first hole. And it's about 1 1/8 inches from the bottom to the dead center of it. And then from there, we'll go 2 1/2 inches over, go 1 5/8 inches up to the dead center and drill this massive hole out right here, which is it's about 1 1/8 inches. I am not going to be using the factory harness, so this doesn't have to be cut out as large on my car. We'll go over from the dead center of that 2 1/4 more inches, 2 1/8 inches up. We're going to drill an 11/32 hole, and then 2 1/4 inches over from the dead center of this, 1 1/8 inches up. We're going to drill a 9/32 hole. At least that's what works with mine. So here's a 5/16 drill bit, fits real snug. But if you go to the other holes, it's loose, and then it doesn't fit in that one. You could probably get away with maybe drilling like a 9/32 hole across all three of these and probably be okay. Toyota may have done that, so this bracket has a little bit of adjustability to it, maybe to center it more. I'm not 100% positive, to be honest. So this is kind of what I figured out. Hopefully this works for you. Like I said, you can just basically take a sheet of paper, drop it on there, 2 1/8 inches over, 1 1/8 up, boom. 1 5/8 inches, hole 2 1/2 inches over, 2 1/4 over there, 2 1/4 over there, do another hole. So I'm not really an engineer. I don't really do much drawings like this. So hopefully this makes sense to you guys. If any of you guys are smarter than me, feel free to drop a note in the word spot and educate me on an easier way to do this. Maybe I can draw up something that you guys can print out. I don't know. I'm not super tech savvy, but I can figure something out. So anyway, that's how we're going to go ahead and mount it. Currently, nobody that I'm aware of makes these. You pretty much got to find these secondhand. If you have the ability to 3D print these and would like to work with me on something, feel free to DM me. Instagram, Gmail, whatever works for you. I'd love to be able to make these for people, but yeah, let's go ahead and get this drilled out. Okay, so using all of my own math, I'm gonna go ahead and go 2 1/8 inches over, then go 1 1/8 inches up, drill a hole, go to the 2 1/2 inches, go about 1 5/8 inches up, drill another hole, 2 1/4 over, 2 1/8 inches up, drill another hole, 2 1/4 over, another 1 1/8 inches, drill another hole. Since I drew this all out on paper, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of use if I can keep this fairly straight, which again, if it's a little off, it's probably not a huge deal, but I'm going to go ahead and see if this will leave an indent in the dash. These are a rough hole estimate for holes, so using my own math, we'll see if that works. Looks like we got a hole right about there, right about there, right about there, and right about there. So that should be my spots to drill using my own math. So I'm going to start off with 9/32. That's the smallest drill bit size. I'm going to do the first 3 holes. I think that's going to be really all I need to do. I think the variance in size may potentially just be for some adjustability, but not 100% positive. But either way, let's go ahead and get the first couple holes drilled. Whee! There's one. There's the bigger hole right there. And then this hole. And then last but not least, you want this one. And it's fitting in. Pretty snug too. So I'm gonna go ahead now and drill a hole for the wiring harness a little bit larger. Then we'll vacuum all this crap up and be done. Again, I am not going to be using the factory pigtail. The way this is spliced in does not allow the use of the factory pigtail. So I'm going to use a 30 seconds drill bit. So now that we got the holes all drilled in, before we go ahead and put this inclinometer in and screw it in, I gotta go ahead and pull this gauge cluster out for the wiring. There is a screw up there, a screw up there, a screw down on the side over there, and a screw down underneath over there, and that's how you pull this gauge face off. These are just held in with little wiring harnesses on the back side of them, so they can pop out pretty easily. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this out, and then we'll go ahead and keep rolling forward on getting the cluster out. There's one screw. There's screw number 2. All right, now this comes up. These little connectors right over here, they just kind of pop straight out. Be kind of careful with them because they are brittle old plastic. That will just pop forward like that. Squeeze the tab on the top right there, and that'll pop this one out. The other side's basically the same thing for the washer sprayer if your car has one. Pull it back. If you look over there, there's a little bit of a tab on the side there. Just kind of pry up on it a little bit, and out it'll come like that. I'm gonna go ahead and tilt this column down a little bit, make some room, and that comes out of there. Now again, there's a couple more pieces of wiring harness. Just squeeze that tab in on the side right there, and that'll pop this out of here. There's this side over here. There we go. So 4 connectors total, and then last but not least, the gauge cluster itself. The gauge cluster itself is held in by 4 Phillips screws. One right there, one right there, one down over here, one on the other side, underneath this harness, right there. I'll pop those out next. All right, I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to get this on film, but in order to get this gauge cluster out, there's a little tab right there. There's another harness below this one with a tab on the inside right here. And then there's a speedometer cable. Oh, that actually worked okay. That gives me a bit more room. Now I'll go ahead and pull this off. There we go. And last but not least, oh, the speedo cable already popped itself off. That's kind of nice. I know the speedo cable was working, but I'm glad it popped off easily. Usually this kind of has to be twisted off a little bit. There's some tabs on it. I may have not got it in properly last time. So, and that's everything removed. So now we got to go ahead and do some splicing into this harness to get everything working. So got the end of the harness cut. Got to slip through here. I tell you what, that 15-30 seconds hole ended up being like almost perfect. Like this harness just barely snugly fits in there, which is phenomenal. There's a tab right here that slides in the opening right there. Guide that in like so, and then now a screw goes there and a screw goes there to hold it in place. I'm gonna throw 2 screws in, and then we'll go ahead and do the harness part. All right, so off camera, I went ahead and got all these wires spliced in and everything like that, mostly for the fact that I wanted just to make sure that I was getting them in the right wires and making sure everything's hooked up right and checking all the colors and things like that. So what I used to put these together was these splice connectors. Sure, some people might not be real happy with using these. Feel free to use your own method. Anyway, so what I have looking over here is on this little 7-wire connector over to the right of the gauge cluster, right of your steering wheel. The white wire with a black tracer is hooked up to a red wire with a green tracer. It's like the top right one over on this connector. And then the red wire with a white tracer is hooked up to the all yellow wire on this little connector, which is the one, it's like the third over here to the left, it looks like. So, and then now as for the power and the ground are hooked up over here to the cluster. The ground is hooked up to the green with a yellow tracer, which is the 4th wire in, and then the 5th wire, which is a green with a red. That is what has the power hooked up to it. So real quick as a test, boom, we got it glowing. Go ahead and turn the key on. 4-wheel drive, all good to go. So all that's working. You see I threw an LED in there. I like the LEDs. I do think the green with the blue is a little bit of a weird contrast. I don't know if I'm going to keep that. I might go to white, but I feel like if I do white, I'll end up doing white there and the white in the cluster. Maybe I'll do orange. I don't know. I'll figure that out in time. It's not like a huge urgent rush right now. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get this gauge cluster all together and back in, and then I'll touch base with you guys in a couple seconds. All right, one last test before I do a cleanup. Bam. Everything's working good. And 4-wheel drive's working good. All right. I just have now 2 4-wheel drive lights. Fancy. Oh, man. Feels good to be done. There's one thing I noticed about this inclinometer here. Locked, that is just slightly off. Now, it should be perfectly center locked, and then when it's off, you can kind of do the adjustments left and right there, and then you can pull this out and get it to lean backwards. Turn it forward and get it to lean forward like that. But locked. Should be straight up and down. So let's go adjust this thing a little bit, and I'll kind of show you how to take these things apart and adjust them. Popping this lens off is pretty simple. The hardest part is actually to get these two out of here. So you kind of want to hold this straight. Take a small, narrow, flathead screwdriver, ideally like a glasses one, or something smaller than what I've got right now. Just kidding, it's actually working, surprisingly. That'll just pull straight off. Again with this one. Now these screws are a little bit different than any other screws I've seen, so don't lose these. I'm gonna put these right here. This will pull straight off. Now for the lens, it's just these 4 outer screws right here. Ba-ba-da. All right, so forgive me for the really messy workbench, but we're going to go ahead and probably just pop this thing out of here. This comes off with just a couple of screws in the backside right here in this harness. So. Yeah, I know, more screws. This was a really screwy job. I'm here all week. Okay. This pulls out the whole assembly. All right, so here we have this thing locked. On the back side, there's weights over here, and there's weights over here. This weight right here will sway this one right here, and then this weight right here will swing this one right here. So once it's unlocked, right there, as this turns, you can see how that turns with it. So now we just got to get this centered to where that and that throw is the same. It looks like it's a little off down here, so let me turn this up a little bit, and basically all I do is just hold the weight and turn this gear a little bit. So now, if you look, and now we go this way, that way, that way. It all seems to work good. So I'm going to go ahead and screw this back in the housing. Hopefully that was helpful. There's just a lot of little weights in here. It's very brittle plastic, so I would be pretty careful with it. This stuff bakes under the sun in your dashboard and gets all the heat, so be careful. I do not know of anybody that 3D prints or recreates any single components of these. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and toss this back inside of here now. Well, that's probably going to wrap it up for me today on this thing. Pretty excited to have this inclinometer in. This European spec inclinometer looks really cool. I like them a lot more than the US versions. Thanks a ton for watching. Got any questions, leave any notes down the word spot. Shoot me an email, DM me on Instagram, whatever. I'll help you out as best as I can. This write-up, I got to give a huge shout out to the forum user. I'm going to put his name right here because I'm probably going to say it wrong. He's the reason that I actually have information on how to do this completely. Check out the Tercel4wheeldrive.com forum. It is a great resource if you own one of these cars. There's tons of phenomenal information on here. Free factory service manual. I got links to that in the description to this Toyota video and every Tercel related video I do pretty much. Maybe some of the off-roading ones might not have it, but pretty much any video where I'm working on these has all that information in the description. So again, appreciate it a ton. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you the next one. Adios.